Good morning. I hope ukuthi aniphathwa ngamakhaza. That you guys are all warm. 100%. We're about to start. I think everyone has arrived. Everyone that needs to be here is here. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. What an honorable day. What an honor it is to be amongst you all. For us youth to be amongst our elders like this, it's a great honor. Because we are who we are because of you. Your blood, sweat, and tears. All of you. Ensured ukuthi we are the men that we are today. Siyabonga kakhulu. Mina igama nguwandile wakadlala umgabadelo wakabadela inkundla zikaBulawayo. Nguvezi, ngumhlophe, ngumpembe, unyazitho, umagalela goce. Njengoshongololo. Ngiyabonga kakhulu isintu into esithanda kakhulu. It's what we have. It's what we were given. And it's what we will pass on. So we thank you all for being here. Namuhla ilanga libaluleke kakhulu. A lot of you are asking yourself, who's this young man? I'm a YouTuber. Umuntu othanda ukukhuluma kuma radio. I'm a teacher, I'm a counselor. And I'm a metaphysical life coach. And how that started was studying Umkhulu, the old man that raised me ekhaya. He used to say, we used to quarrel and argue a lot about the African National Congress. And I used to say to him, we need to leave this party for it to wake up. And he said, how many mistakes have I made in this household? Have you guys ever left me? He says, every time the walls fall apart, we repaint and build it. We fix it. But we don't buy a new house. And that is when I came across the greatness of Ubaba Msimang. When the corruption watch came across and when you have someone who gave up his life saying, Senya beta, sen wrongla, it holds a lot more value than one deal saying that to his elders. So today we're here to thank. A lot of us don't have the opportunity to be thanked. The stones are always put above our bodies when we have gone to be with Umvelingang. So today is about the greatness that is within the room and within our country. I will ask that for this portion, all those that do not refer to themselves as senior citizens, if we can stand. And our senior citizens, please remain seated. In Africa, when we commence umhlangano, umsebenzi, noma inkundla, we always call upon the greatness that walked before us. Whether you call him whatever you call him, we are calling him. But we are going to do it in this fashion today. I'm going to ask us to close our eyes. And I'm going to ask the great ones that walked with the likes of Baba Msimang and the rest of you to join us in this room. Let us close our eyes. Mvelingang Baba sibiza kuwena. We thank you for gathering us around this room. We could have been anywhere else in the world. But on this day, you saw it fit and be fitting that we be here. We call upon the warriors that have walked these African plains, that have ensured the life that we live today. We see it. We live it. We experience it. We call upon the spirits of Hani, Madiba, Tambo, Mbeki, Lituli. We call upon the spirits of the names that never became famous. We call upon the names and the spirits of those who died in battle, whose names never got archived in history. We ask them to join us. We call upon the names that across these African plains have bled, have given their lives for the freedom we now live in. We ask you to join us in this room, that the greatness that we are amongst, you may be part and parcel of it. We ask that you bless every single individual that is here, that wherever they go forth, multiplication may be their daily life. May they know more than they need. May they share in the extra that you give them. And may they teach the wisdom in which you instill in them. Be one with us today. Give us greatness and give us power. Give us love and give us resilience. Allow us to fix where we come from, so we give the next generation an opportunity to experience that greatness as well. Ngisibonga wena ukuthi usasinikezile usuku, that your greatness is still within us and that you reside within our hearts. Heal those that need the healing this morning. Heal the hearts who are still broken from loss. And renew our minds and remind us of the greatness that resides within us. May today be a day where we do a 360 in our lives by the greatness that is in this room. In your blessed name. Amen. Siyabonga kakhulu. Today it's a day of celebration for me. Having read the book, I'm honored to finally meet you in person, Babu Msimba. I have watched your interviews. The one I found very interesting was with Babu Ndlozi, Dr. Ndlozi. Very, very interesting that the history that we thought we knew still resides in great men that are still here. And whilst they're still here, we need to get it from them. It's hearsay. He says, she says. This morning, I want to take us through an exercise, if you permit me. If you allow, I'd like to take us through a short exercise for us to get to where we are going and remember where we come from. Do you allow me? You trust me? 100%. Thank you for trusting me. It is a very simple exercise. All I'm going to ask you to do is close your eyes and just listen to the sound of my voice. And wherever that takes you, please journey with me. Yeah? 100%. You may close your eyes. Breathe in deeply and out. In and out. Allow the stresses that you brought in to leave your body at this moment. In and out. And feel your body relaxing at this moment. Allow yourself to relax. I want to take you back to a time where there was a lot of bloodshed in the country. All you heard was the guns, the rattling of the AK-47, the sound of dogs, the sound of brothers and sisters being chased, the slurring of insults as our brothers and sisters were being hurled away. A time where the township was full of smoke. Schools were burning. I want you to go back and smell, taste it, feel the dense air. Remember the price of bread. Remember having to remember your dompas in the morning. Remember traveling on the bus to work. The strikes. Remember seeing students marching, the difficulties of those years. Remember 1994, when liberation came through. Freedom had arrived. Remember 95 lifting the World Cup. 96 lifting the cup of nations, the greatness of a nation that we are, the Rainbow Nation, and the greatness of the people that we are today. Remember the greatness that you are. When you are ready, you may come back and join me. It's a great honor to stand in front of you and to see that many of you lived through that reality. The emotion on your faces tells a deep story as you walk through that journey. Today is a celebration for those many years, sacrifices of blood, sweat, and tears. We are here to honor you and to say thank you as Izwe, Le South Africa. I'm going to call up the first speaker that's going to open for us. I'm going to call up a lady. I always love opening with women. They set the tone and the atmosphere of a room. And they lay a carpet for the men to walk in a later stage. That's not belittling women. Women have a God-given talent of laying the table. Heta oversees the academic and the book projects within the humanities and the sciences, specializing in converting doctoral thesis into books and managing hybrid open access publishing. She started as an English language editor in 1987 and moved through graphic design and marketing before getting into the current role. Please help me welcome Heta.
Thank you so much, Chair. It's a privilege and an honor to be here with you. It really is. It's such an august occasion for us here. This is the Unisa Research and Innovation Week. And it might be a strange combination to you, but the aspect that makes this book innovative, I'm going to firstly say that. The innovative aspect is Dr. Meyer opened a popular book series. So the idea is, on the one hand, there's the ivory tower, and we don't want to be part of that. Okay, a part of us, we do scholarly books. I do PhD to book research, conversion, and so on. But what we have on the table here is something different. This is something that I'm really excited about, and I thank Mavuso for the patience that he's had with us on this journey. But the amazing thing around this book is that, of course, if we look at between hope and vigilance, and we have to look at the prescriptions for a wounded nation, so beautifully evoked by the silence. We have to, when we go back into silence and if we close our eyes, thank you so much for helping our audience to just get back to that moment to say, this is not a clean slate. This book came from somewhere, and the level of commitment of this author is not unlike anything Unisa Press has ever published. So what we have in front of us that I'm encouraging you to buy, apart from the fact that you might find in your hands over 50 essays in this volume. Guess what? There's a lot more. Mavuso is a man with a history which is difficult to tap into in one book. So I'm going to do my best to whet your appetite for the book. And then let's see how we progress from here. I'm sorry that David Lewis, I'm not sure David Lewis is in the room with us today, but when Mavuso put his book together, we have to take from where it came that this is a man that Unisa had not only started in November, very recently, November 2020, was awarded, I should have said, Dr. Mavuso Misimang, an honorary doctorate, well deserved for his various roles in public service. He got known, I'm going to jump around a bit, as Mr. Fix-It, but you'll soon start seeing where is the pattern in all of this. We have an author with a high moral ground, an author that came from somewhere and with a track record that if this man speaks, people want to listen, people want to believe. This is a leader of whom I wish we have more, many more in this country. All of us, not only the ANC needs leaders like this, I would say the whole spectrum needs leaders with this metal, this type of significance, and this is why this man was able to write this book. It might sound like I'm stating the obvious, but let's go back to the foreword. So I'm not the only woman in the room speaking here. The other woman that spoke was his daughter. We have to say that. That critical, very strategic foreword, we have to have that as an opening platform to say, Mavuso's daughter, with her talent, she's also an excellent public speaker, stepped to the fore and said, you know what, I might differ from my father, but this is above party political differences, but it's also on a personal family level. The deep felt conviction to support the ANC and to feel not only hope, but also vigilance, that ongoing vigilance to keep commenting, keep the struggle. You know, this is what Sisonke looks at. And I think Dr. Meyer might correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in the history of Unisa Press, we're celebrating our 70th year. This is the first time that we have family members collaborating within a book in such a manner that it adds to the authenticity of what we have on the table. You need to go and read that forward for yourself. And then you'll also understand where Mavuso and Sisonke look each other in the eye and they say, they both believe in the aspect of, on the one hand, hope and vigilance. A most poetic title for a book where the author takes on a very difficult task. He is very close to the ANC. It's not easy to criticize a party that you're very close to. But if you also show that you believe that they can change and that there can be better days. So I'm asking you, as you open the book, to bear in mind, I think I must keep my speech short because there's so many people going to speak. Bear in mind that there is so much more behind this carefully curated selection. I think that's why the author had a hard time, and the publisher also had a hard time to decide what to include, what to exclude. Everything selected in the end was done very strategically across 7 parts. And the first 2 parts give a lot of recognition to the legacy of our Tambo, the struggle heroes, of which of course Mavuso is part of that, and possibly also to remind a younger generation. A younger generation might have forgotten or lost touch with what went before. That glorious past of the ANC, we shouldn't forget it, because it's exactly that glorious past that gives this author hope to say, man, this ANC can improve. I'm not going to let go. I'm going to keep believing. I will remain a vigilant commentator. So when you look at part 3 of the book, we've got 21 essays in part 3, and this is where Mavuso really steps in, you could almost say, into the boxing circle, sometimes openly engaging and criticizing and really ensuring that he does not hesitate if something needs to be said. If he feels Zuma must step down, he's the one to say it, and that's on page 104. That's not the end of it. Of course, towards the end of the book, Mavuso is also the one with a firm conviction that Ramaphosa should step down and say it. This is not an easy thing to say, but those controversial statements are sometimes needed to be heard in a political context. I'm going to jump go forward to say that in part 4 of the book, there's always that attempt to find, in search of transparency, to find good governance and accountability, to encourage, to really be a leader that people look up to, not just to criticize. We do not have, there's not an aspect of a sort of just a negativity or criticism. It's always done with due care, every chapter, every essay written. And I would say when you go to part 6 of the book, though there's a smaller section about the environmentalist, Mavuso with his training as a BSc student, entomology and biochemistry, apart from then moving into his public administration MA, this is a man that cares about the environment, and he's still to this day involved in ensuring that we protect our environment. So what you'll find when you open the book, there's so many dimensions. The dimension of a man that cares deeply about the environment, not just about the people. But this type of leadership where there's so much care, it really becomes a moral dilemma. So it's very tough. You know, you don't want to lose hope in the ANC. You just want to keep fighting. And you will follow him through those select essays. When we come to the 7th and closing section, Mavuso, I understand with the postscriptum, I read again also, like Sisonke says, there's a huge amount of urgency. That energy is still ongoing, and I would say that final testimony to the sense of urgency is there's personal torment. This person wants to step away from the ANC, but yes, yet people do convince him to step back, because a leader doesn't leave his people. You do care, and there's empathy with people. The same qualities that Owa Tambo taught you when you were with him. So this is what makes us admire. And this is why we have here a role model and a leader whom people can really look up to. So you will find the book closes off there with once again saying, oh, look, I'm going to resign. And then he says, okay, I'm going to rescind my resignation. The responsibility remained to keep engaging with the ANC. And of course, in the afterword by David Lewis, there is an extended analysis of the future of the ANC. My wish list for this author, who very smartly on page 208 has, of course, the wisdom of a true author to end the journey in an open-ended fashion. So, you know, Mavuso, you referred to a journey, and the fact that a journey is still going on. And what I see in you is there is a lot of journey still to go. And this is exactly what we see as publishers, as Unisa Press. We know where there's more to follow. We are asking and we're inviting our author to please step forward and continue the journey and give us more about the man behind these essays so that we can get to know you. Because we know you are almost too humble. You are understating, and you know, the true aspect that people in the room should understand is we are looking forward to the journey, between hope and vigilance, to continue into your autobiography and to give us more the true story and what was it like to be in exile, to come back, to step into public service after so many years in exile, but still keep on engaging. We need to hear a lot more of that That is a riveting story that can inspire a new generation. So I have to thank our author. I'm not going to speak much longer, but I'd like to invite you. Can you see all the flags in the book? I'm not going to read any more from it, but I'm inviting you to go and discover it. I'm inviting you to bring in youth. You bring in more people to also read this, so that a whole new generation can get this sense of a truly ethical leader, what ethical leadership looks like. Mavuso, you are not ready to close off the journey if you haven't told us that story of yours. So I'm opening, although the book has now been published, we're handing back the journey ticket to you to finish the mapping out of this marvelous book. So thank you so much, and I invite you to get the signature from the author, buy the book, and show it to a different generation, to people around you, to your neighbors. Tell them this is what leadership looks like. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Heta. Yeah, when you speak about the part where he speaks about Bob Cyril stepping down, I had to read it twice. Because I asked myself, when Ubaba speaks in a house, he's not afraid of the children getting angry, because what he's saying is correct. And I had to read it twice so that I could remember what leadership is. It's not about being favored. It's not saying things that are favorable, but it's saying the correct things that will mark your name in history for standing up for the correct things and the right things at all times. We're still thankful that we've got men like that in our communities, and men that we can look up to like that. Siyabonga kakhulu, Baba. Thank you, Heta. I'm going to call up a very distinguished executive leader, a serial entrepreneur, a professional manager, a turnaround strategist, and an executive coach. He holds a Doctor of Business, Leadership, and has over decades of leadership, teaching, and consulting experience across several African countries. He is the founding editor of Financial Business Magazine. I call onto the stage Dr. Meia G. Ntuasan. Ntuasan.
Good morning. Dumelang. I must first do a disclaimer that my boss won't be here. He is still caught up in the opening of Research and Innovation Week. And I was just told, so I was trying to figure out how do I now compress what he's tasking me to do and what I was supposed to do. So I'm just going to do a free ride. You will have to bear with me because I don't know what Professor Ngwebe was going to talk about. He just gave me a few instructions, but be that as it may, it probably is necessary to set the scene and locate ourselves into what's bringing us together. The launch of this book happens within the week in the university that we call the Research and Innovation Week. This has been happening for about now, I think it's 15 years. I'm starting to be corrected. But the university has taken a stand 15 years or so ago to be a research-intensive university. Many people sitting around will recall Unisa was purely really not even associated with research and or hard science. But that changed about a decade and a half ago. So this week, the university, there's a long week program where all the colleges not only showcasing, because showcasing seems to suggest that the work is done, but it's to open the doors of the university to engage with peers, with the lack of a better word, detractors and collaborators, to understand where Unisa locates itself from a research point of view, one, where it locates itself in terms of positioning and trajectory of the future generations, two, and probably finally, not to be a spectator in the knowledge creation economy, but an active, not only pioneer, but a co-creator of what our lives in general should look like. Because in any case, that is what research is about. So this is what's happening in this week. Again, within the context of this week, and maybe this year, bringing it closer home to Unisa Press, I'm not sure how many colleagues and how many attendees and delegates and dignitaries sitting in the podium who are aware of Unisa Press. But without a fear of contradicting myself, I can comfortably say this is the largest university press on the African continent. And I'm leveraging what I'm saying not only because of what we believe our mother institution is, but this is predicated even on the hard work that colleagues have done, especially in the past 5 years. I'm pretty comfortable that the university press has the capabilities at this point in time in history that cannot be matched by our other university presses on the continent. And this is because of the unseen faces, many of them, that are not sitting here, men and women who are making sure to position University Press as a pioneer and a leader in press. And maybe the question is, why does that matter? What's the relevance? Why is it necessary? Now, here is the thing. If we listen to a story told by a hunter about how the hunter shot the antelope, and you listen to how they put the narrative together, how they saw the antelope and they prepared the gun and they released the shot and they shot at precision at the antelope. The story of bravery. If institutions like ourselves do not exist, we will remain listening to the story of the event from the viewpoint of the hunter, until the antelope tells the story of the same event, sometimes of pain, of anxiety, and many other things. All I am saying is our university press exists, among other many reasons, to ensure that we don't only tell our own stories, we proactively look for them and allow them to be articulated, not to be interpreted, but to be written by the authors of the story. I'm not saying, Babu Msimang, you're an antelope, but I'm just saying it is... And I hope you don't get a new name and they call you an antelope. But what I'm saying is we are socially bound as a public institution, not only to play a developmental role, but to ensure that we create scholarship by one, making sure that knowledge is created in all of its multiple ways. Not only that knowledge is created, it's disseminated not only locally, but globally. Now, maybe it is necessary for me to just locate and to make colleagues understand the role that I personally feel Unisa Press place in our society. One of the things that make Unisa Press unique in the ecosystem of university presses, especially in South Africa at the very least, we are one press that heavily publish books and scholarly journals. Let me park the books a little bit. I will come to that. We publish 47 academic journals. Half of those are co-published with Routledge, Taylor and Francis, domiciled in the United Kingdom. I'm sharing that piece of information intentionally because we are intentional by making sure that the knowledge that we create goes globally and is read globally. The latest report that I have of our relationship at the very least with Taylor and Francis indicates that almost more than 154 countries read the work that is produced and published here. Now, that is not to glorify Unisa Press or Unisa, but is to indicate the strategic role that this press plays in making sure that the knowledge creation traverses the borders and go to other continents, so that what we conceptualize, what we understand as knowledge, and what we communicate is accepted globally. The second key point that, in my opinion, makes Unisa Press unique is our ability to publish books. Now, I need to say it is very interesting that we are not a discipline-specific publishing house. I was just looking at the latest books that we published, at least in last year and this year. They move from politics to history to education to natural sciences and so on and so forth. This can only be the home in my mind that allows a full expression and the creation of scholarship and knowledge in its multiple formations that they are. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring it maybe back, and I'm going to leave you. I was just doing setting the scene and sharing what Unisa Press is about. So university presses historically, and in the contemporary society, we publish scholarly books, the lack of a better word, that's what we do. And those who probably are in the space will understand when we say scholarly, it's mainly grounded in academy and in academic work and so on and so forth. And it's my understanding that the university presses will have started predominantly in the Western environment and found themselves here. But here's the question that at least I personally was asking myself, and that, among other things, is bringing us here together. Who dictates scholarship? And what is scholarship? Now, I'm made to understand, I was never there, but I'm told that our forefathers and our foremothers, they used to sit around the fire and they will chat and they will pass wisdom down other generations. I'm forced to believe it, I don't know it. If you are to take that scenario and put it together in the contemporary and literary constrictions of university press and academy, that is not regarded as scholarship. At the very least, let me put it the other way around. If you're doing your master's and your dissertation, if you didn't quote somebody from US and Europe and things like that, your supervisors will tell you, but you haven't quoted whoever and whoever because it's not regarded as scholarship, right? But here's my question. The solar system pre-existed, at least in my opinion. What we now read in the solar system as it's conceptualized by education as we know. But I'm pretty confident that our forefathers and foremothers will look at the solar system and were able to have their own way of conversing what the solar system is. So here's my question. Is it how they looked at solar system, not scholarship? I will say it's scholarship, but it's not grounded, maybe, in written format. But if you had to follow the steps and understood how they conceptualized and they spoke about solar system, there will still be a convergence to what we understand as the solar system from the Eurocentric and Western opinions are. It's just that the form of creating that scholarship is not the conventional way of how, at the very least, most of us went through school. Go to school, you go to varsity. That's how we're taught. I mean, I'm a product of that. So when we started the Popular series, it was a very simple question to answer. Who dictates scholarship? That's the first question. And the second question was, what is scholarship? So in my humble opinion, now foregrounding myself to the conversations that we're having today, if I read this text, to me, is scholarship. It's just that the scholarship is not foregrounded in what we've been marinated to believe scholarship to be. I will not be surprised that decades when I'm not here anymore, a text like this will be one of the pillars of scholarship in a particular discipline. But that, ladies and gentlemen, needed ourselves, the lack of a better word, to be a little bit stubborn and be intentional to doing things differently. With those few words, I hope I was able to present what Prof. Weber was going to say, and at the same time also locate everybody in the room on what we do. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Let's enjoy this book. I thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, you have me thinking. Uguti, the teachings of the elders that were passed on to us, we actually have PhDs from Boko Kubetu. We thank you so much for enlightening us there. I just want to check if you guys are still here with me. Mangitamandla. Umangithamandla anginizwa umangithamandla. There we go. Amandla wethu, which means the power is ours. The power is ours to change our reality. The power is ours to change the reality for our kids. And the power is ours because we saw our fathers and mothers do it, of changing their reality. Amandla. Thank you so much. It is good to hear that you are still awake and still with us. I will call up a giant, a man born in 1941 in a small place called Edendale, close to what we know now as Pietermaritzburg. A man who attended high school in Inkamana, where he matriculated. In 1976, he graduated from the University of Zambia with a Bachelor of Science in Entomology, specializing in biochemistry. He also holds a Master in Business Administration from the United States in California. In 1976, he would be based in Kongwa, Tanzania. He moved to Zambia, where he met Umama, Ununtombi, and they had 3 beautiful daughters. In 77, he would volunteer for the UN and later for the UN's World Food Program in Kenya and Zambia. Between 77 and 1984, he worked both in Ethiopia and Ottawa, in Canada, Ottawa, for the World University Services of Canada. From 1987 to 91, he was the director in Kenya. 91 to 93, he was a senior project officer for UNICEF in Ethiopia and Eritrea. 93, he returns home, then works for Umthombo Trust. Then he's the executive director of the South African Tourism Board. 97, CEO of National Parks. Then he was the CEO of the State's Information Technology Agency, 2003 to 2007. 2007, he becomes the Director General of Home Affairs and the founding member as well of African Parks Networks. This is a man who did not sit still. I can imagine him as a young child of 7. Mama lokuthi hlala still. Ngakuthinti lokho. Stop it. Because you see it in this man's movement. An idle mind is the devil's workshop. This man did not idle. In this nowadays, in the 2K's speech, they would say he keeps it moving. Umsimanglo, unonkosi, uthabizolo, umuthwa, izicubanja ezimbili esingenhle nesingenzansi kwendlela ukhuku lomhlanganiso wahlanganiswa indlu kaDlomo uDlomo lo udludlu omzimba obushelezi omuhle njengomntwana engathi ngingawanga amazana Nkosi ngokuzala obhungane umfazi umabele amade owanyanyisela engaphesheya umfula mahlubi amahle angelengele anzipho zimnyama ngokucawanya umthwa oluthuli madlela phezulu ngokwesaba amanyala. Help me to welcome the giant who we've all gathered to meet and to hear from. None other than himself, Ubaba. Ubaba Msima. Whilst Ubaba is coming up, can I ask Ubabu Usipo? Mantula zos. Join ala phambili. Yabo.
Thank you very much to all my compatriots who took time and be part of the launch of this effort, this book. A lot of things have been said here, and they are true. I think for the sake of my colleagues in the ANC, I don't need to say that the dispatch to these places that he talks about kept me very much in the loop. When I got into Canada, I managed to get a document that allowed me to do many, many things that these guys were sitting in the camps would not be able to do, and those happened. I was always within the back and call of the ANC, one that, and whatever was done had the authority of the African National Congress. That's why I was stuck with our problems and made them mine a little bit. Thank you very much for attending. I don't know what's the format of this book. Do you of this? Does somebody ask me? Huh? About the book? Oh yeah, yeah. As colleagues, I think in honor of Unisa, this book, which is a compilation of articles that many of you, most of the political colleagues, well, colleagues are political by definition. Ngiyezwakala? Okancane? Because I've been hearing this thing going, which is not quite good. But is it better now? Is it better? Better? No, in 2007, a big event happened in the ANC. We had a meeting, conference at Polokwane. I think Utabo should have designated a successor. So I'm really just talking my thoughts here, and he didn't. And there were always issues about can he, now that he is no longer able to be state president, but is still willing to continue as president of the ANC, a job he did very well. Many people thought this would create two centers of power and cause problems. In that gap came people who have landed us where we are today. We had a person come in who was right then still under a cloud of an accusation of having raped somebody. But in the end, he didn't. So we accept that. But it's a person who came to look at an elder, look for advice and support from an elder. And she ended up being a refugee in other countries because of the problems that arose from a person that we chose in Polokwane to be our leader. Is a person who faced, who had an individual sentenced to 3 15-year terms for corruption. And he was found guilty of corruption and of corrupting the person that we chose to be our leader. That's us, that's the state of the ANC. That is difficult to explain to people. The consequence of this is that post 2010 or thereabouts, we really started dealing with an organization that we did not know, but it was the ANC, and its leadership was technically appointed, elected actually by ourselves. One had a group of veterans, ANC veterans, came together, and we came to be called the Veterans League 101. We were a lot more than 101, but those who signed said, listen, let's get a conference a new Morogoro. Morogoro is a place where the ANC really reset itself in exile when things were very difficult. We invited that reset. It was spent completely by the leadership of the ANC. And so the negative journey continued, plowing through. They don't have it in English because Zalima Zaichen, it was just continuing as we were. So the writing of these articles was really a response to an announcement, actually, to the nation that the ANC that we joined, the ANC that we continue to serve, the ANC that the people chose because it is the ANC that was in the forefront of the liberation struggle. This is not to put down any others. Everybody, we had 4 pillars of the struggle in the ANC, for those who are not familiar with this thing, and they acknowledge the role of each section of humanity in these 4 pillars: international solidarity, MK fighting, as it did, exploding things in Sasolburg, power plant in Quebec, hitting Voortrekker Hoogte, hitting the police station, the center of power. These were announcements that we are there. So when people, by the way, downplay what the ANC, the MK did, I'm talking about serious MK, in contribution to the struggle, these are some of the things that that happened. That's history. But one started writing and letting the country know that what is happening doesn't have the approval of the ANC that we know. And the media published it, City Press, Daily Maverick, News 24. So the articles that are contained in this book are articles that have been read by quite a few people, most people who are sitting in the room here. So almost to the chagrin of Unisa, I was really understating the importance of today, because those in the ANC and those who are politically minded would have read quite a few things that are in this book. But I did get, I looked at it this morning and I thought, I think it's worth, even as a record of history and the stubborn continuation of the problem that has existed now for 15 years, it's worth getting this thing out to the public. Mandle Silo is my daughter. She's here. I'm happy to see you, Mandlos. They only learned this morning from my confirmation that the launch is taking place today. I'm apologizing that Unisa, I'll have to do something. I'll have to do something to promote the sale of the book. I'm not very strong on the commercial side of things. If I told a lot more people, I think many, many more would have been here. But so that's the background to this. Many more articles were written in the period between around 2012 and today. The last 2 years, nothing is in the book on that. And by the way, let me say again, thanks to Unisa's, the manuscript for this book was ready by 2024, and they were ready to publish in April. And there were going to be elections in May. Remember the May 2029 elections? And I was really in mortal fear that if Unisa published this book in April and the elections came and we happened not to do well, well, some of our leaders have given us some English words like decampaigning. Then I would have been accused of having decampaigned the ANC into losing elections. And they held off and didn't publish. Then many things happened. So there is an element also in the tributes of absence of date, and that's because of the gap between the submission of the manuscript and the launch today. But I'm really grateful. I looked at it and I thought there is relevance. Is this my sister's daughter? Later. Allow me, guys, a little bit of privilege. Stand up later. Yeah. She's my sister's daughter. She writes, and she will be doing a PhD at Cornell University later this year. Wow, congratulations. Yeah. And now that I've started this thing very quickly, and I see my brother stand up also, fun. They are much younger. That's to say my father was a fairly prolific guy. But they are my brother. In Nguni, in our culture, all of us here, we don't call people half brothers or half sisters. They are brothers. Even cousins that you grow up with are brothers or sisters and so on. So I'm happy to see you here also. I was excoriated by my youngest daughter, who really doesn't mince her words. When I said, yes, I can confirm the launch is taking place today, she said, this is crazy. But a little bit of a little anecdotal stuff around here today. I'm really happy that Sisonke agreed to write the foreword. The nepotism there is a little tempered by the fact that she tells everybody that she long lost hope in the ANC. and yet I persisted. And she suggested the title that is holding the book. Because she recognized that we have a responsibility to really keep the message, uphold it, really push it in whatever manner we can. That was created not just from 1912. The history of the struggle starts from the day white people came to this country, 1652. And the introduction reflects all those struggles. And that's not that's not part of the articles. All the wars, 100 years wars. Graham is given the title of Grahamstown, is honored with Graham, because his brief was to make sure that he takes all the Xhosa land and conquer it. And for his successes, he's honored by naming a city after him. We have Theophilus Shepstone, Port Shepstone. This guy, my people were some of the first to be allowed in our own land to buy land, Edendale. And when that happened, Shepstone, who was the Secretary for Native Affairs, said this must not be taken as a precedent. So this is not, it's an advancement that was tempered, that had to be controlled. So some of the stuff is in the book. All the wars, in brief, that were fought by our people from all around are reflected on the pages of this book. Then I worked for Corruption Watch for quite a few, how many years? Corruption Watch is a great institution. David Lewis who writes articles for Business Day and other trade unionists. These are all ANC people if only we cared to keep them, in the crawl. Also wrote, he wrote the afterword in this book. So yes, the articles that were written and that you will have read and may have forgotten are cushioned by the introduction, the foreword, and the afterword, which I think are reasonably interesting reads. A huge contribution, an upliftment of whatever articles are the core of this book. So here we are today, and if I knew how to get somebody who is commercial, I would say, hey guys, buy this book. I don't know how to say that. but it's nice. I think it would be nice to share my thoughts there. When we came back from exile, we had an amnesty document that was granted by the former government. And I think you're not even with Home Affairs as Deputy Minister. I don't know what he was. And that the ANC was supposed to present its own people who are in exile, who must be allowed to come back. My name featured there. And we were talking about it the other day with Penuel Maduna. I know really most of the people around here. And if I don't... Putzola, the memoir is coming. That's a little bit of advertising now. And your accomplishments and your contribution, both in exile and here, to what the ANC was doing, will be captured in that. Absolutely. It wouldn't be a book about me that doesn't mention some of the friends that I coexisted with. But that's now a little bit of promotion, and I didn't come here to do that. But thank you. I don't quite know if there are questions that people would like to ask, or I don't know how this thing is intended to function. I'll be very happy to respond. Kawate.
We give many thanks. Siyabonga ukuthi Baba usasinika indlela ukuthi there's more to come, and we are looking forward to it. I'd like to call up before we open up for discussion, Baba, a great speaker, a Pan-Africanist, a researcher, a man who's associated with the TM African School, who serves as a part-time member of the promotion of and the protection of the rights of culture, religion, and linguistic communities. He's a media contributor and an analyst with various media houses in South Africa and internationally as well, talking issues of African elections, conflict resolution, cultural diplomacy, and human and people's rights. Please help me to welcome Advocate Usipho Matula, Umtiya Umguni.
Enkosi Tata, thank you. Let me greet all my elders and my fellow Unisians on this Africa Day. Tate Mavoso, I think for me when I was young, 20 years ago, when you were still a DG, we used to pester you with many letters in the office on the issue of Public Holidays Act. There were issues around Public Holidays Act and the balancing of it in this country. And secondly, I think when we met with you just recently, we were at the site of our struggle, Freedom Park. You were worried about the language the media was using about the return of exiles and the mortal remains. That was one of your questions about how do we respect those who have fought for this country. But going through this book, I will have to start from the end before I start on the beginning. I think what you have done in this collection of essays, what was missing from me when I looked at your two great articles that talks to the current issues now. The issue of Afrophobia or xenophobic. One of your two articles of 2022 and 2019 captured the moment very clearly of what must we do, what has happened. And I see it missing from the essays because there was a lot of essays that they wrote since 2010. And we have felt that you must capture them in these 257 pages. So my role here is to just epitomize you. It's not to repeat this book. It's to say that this book should be seen as a diary of sorts, according to the author. It must also be seen as an alarm. It must be seen also as a celebration of some small wins, not big wins. You are also reminding us it's a political journal also, written in a real time. Hence I was saying the 2 articles that I have read of you of 2022, you were talking about the anti-sentiments around migrants. And 2019 you were raising, if it is not xenophobia, what is then? You were posing questions whenever you were writing, and as a reader, we must always capture that moment. The second aspect that I've seen that you have written in these essays as part of your collection, and which I'll urge readers here, your introduction is very important because it journals and it is taking us through your journey. Your birthplace, it is taking us through how you see this journey of ANC post-1994 and using Fanon. For me, using Fanon is this rest of the earth. You are talking about the poverty that we are in, that we might have won the freedom, but we have not won the struggle against poverty. And you also goes on the colonial occupation of apartheid South Africa. You goes into the history. You start with Jan van Riebeeck arrival, 6 April 1652. You go even deep to the history of kings and queens to explain the history of this country in your intro. And you go on the history of migration, why we have migrant laborers from Southern Africa, even from East Africa. You also go into the history of the African National Congress and its leaders, despite you don't go into deep into analysis of it, but you go briefly into the history. You go into the apartheid laws. In our midst, seeing you, Advocate Vusi Pikoli, he has also implicated you in this book on his essays about what has happened during that time of removals. Been removed by this president and come another interim president to remove you. There is that essay that maybe you know. There is the part where you also cover for me, what I like about you, Baba, is that you didn't write about yourself. In all these essays, you are always reminding us of people like Vusi Lemini, Solomon Mahlangu, or Onkgopotse Tiro, Bani Molokwane, and many more. So you are always capturing your journey in your essays with other freedom fighters. You have not left anybody behind. You have always carried them along in your pen and in your text. And chapter 1 for me became one of the key ones because you are talking about, that is written on May 7, 2017. You write it to City Press. It was during the centenary of Oliver Tambo. There also you are capturing the moment of Morogoro that you have just said now, that probably the 1969 Morogoro moments are needed in 2026. You go further to explain the 1994 Damascus and the leadership of Oliver Tambo and Nelson Mandela. The other chapter also that, essays that fascinated me, again, 17 May 2015, where you say, let's not forget the dream for which Lituli, a detachment heroes died for. Here you go on General Lambert Moloi, Letlhogonolo Moloi, talking about the banks of Zambezi River. A very important journey also that you are covering, looking at the Luthuli inquest. It is a reminder also about the Luthuli detachment. I know in my province, Mafikeng, there was an abuse of those who went to that Luthuli a detachment where they were called veterans when actually they were not. And that was coming from the late Matabuche. On part 2, I think, on the ANC veterans, you are lamenting here also, where you say it is the voices in the wilderness. You goes again writing to the City Press, 9 July 2017, where you say attacking the stalwarts won't solve the ANC woes or problems. You again critically analyzes the issues of the ANC during the era of Melindiwe Sisulu, if some of you can recall, that those were the debates around the ANC succession, but also the debates around the constitution and the support to the then President Jacob Zuma. I go to part 3, which somebody said it's a long one. It's many essays there, where you now talk about corruption, enablers, factions, closing ranks, state capture. And I think my colleague from Unisa spoke about page 104, where you are talking about the 9 very clear reasons where the president should step down. But for me, an interesting one, also relevant, is what came out from African Renaissance podcast, the interview between Ndlozi and the former Minister of Defense, Nosivuyo Ngakula. You capture the moment here at 32, page 135, the ANC and SANDF flight to meet. What was the meeting of the ANC going to meet ZANU-PF using the state resource? You are critical also there about it. The last one here, it becomes also the Juwat, the late Jesse Juwat on the Zondo Commission. And you are lamenting to say, if Umam Sisulu no Tata were here, how would they felt about Jesse Juwat they have nurtured, about challenging the Zondo Commission outcome? It was still preliminary. Part 4, I didn't want to dwell into part 4 a lot, but I think you are reminding us in 151, page 151, when you say, forget not the crimes of the state capture. And I think for the audience, last week, the former president of Liberia emphasized the role of Auditor General. South Africa is an oldest Auditor General, and that is the role of the Auditor General, that is to audit any corruption that has happened in any file that comes from the Zondo Commission or even Madlanga Commission. That's the role of the Auditor General, to audit the public funds. Very important that the role of the Auditor General is key. Here on part 5, I just picked up where you say political leaders must be held to a high standard than their apartheid predecessors. That's page 175. It comes during the COVID-19, when the EFF had a march breaking down the COVID rules. Now there you are lamenting about that. But also the judgment of the Concord comes into picture here of the former President Jacob Zuma. The unrest of 2021 begins towards the end of June after that judgment. As I'm now wrapping up, part 6, I think that's where it also aligns with the GNU. You have a chapter where you talk about conservative imperative, embracing nature-based solution. Hence they say, Utata, he's not only a political thinker, he's an environmentalist also. He thinks nature as a solution here of this GNU. And this GNU is not the same GNU that we had in 1994. The only difference that I always push is that the GNU of 94 was based on a 1993 constitutional framework. The GNU of 2026 is based on the statement of intent. And I think that's where we differ with some of the legal minds to say, but the GNU of 1996 was solid, had clear rules of engagement, even if others pulled out. But the one of 2024, it was what we call the semantics of elections, when there was no outright winner. Yet it focused on the statement of intent, and the foreign policy issues are still within the ANC, and that's why we have to command it. Like the issue of xenophobia, you question the ANC stance on pan-African ideology. To say, is the ANC still fit for purpose to say we are a pan-African movement? When we had our camps in Tanzania, in Zambia, in Angola, and today it's a fight against African non-nationals. The last part that excited me also was your last page 50, page 210 and 231. I think you have said it earlier, my colleague, about the resignation and rescinding of the resignation. And your bravery there, you say, I can rescind, but I don't retract the 4-page letters that I've sent as my reasons on the state of the African National Congress. And I think that's where we have to say that you were brave enough to say, yes, I've been engaged, but I cannot withdraw the issues that I have flagged in that letter. And that was in 2023, just after the anniversary of Mandela. It was on the 6th of December. And then the 14th, that's where there was rescinding and that press briefing. On that note, like I said, I think I just wanted to remind the audience of those two articles I was talking about that you wrote. It was 25 January 2022, where you say, rising the tide of anti-migrant rhetoric mirrors South Africa's shameful track record. There you touched on even Dudula when it was rising. Now you have March to March. It's a new dynamic. You also in 2019 wrote, if it is not xenophobia, then what is it? There you go also on giving us the history again, a deep history of where does this hate against African nationals come from. And I think it is still relevant even in 2026. On that note, I think I'll pause here and want to thank you for your wisdom and for your bravery to be put in this. And I think documentaries can be one aspect. As you say, how do you disseminate this knowledge? How do we translate these essays into other African languages? How do we put it into a theater play in some instance? Because of the names that you have implicated in your essays, it is not a one-man journey. It is a journey of those who you have traveled with. On that note, Jaleboga, Nkosi, asante sana.
Thank you so much for your knowledge that you've imparted with us. And I think when we step outside, a lot of us will be purchasing a copy of that book because of your words. I know a lot of us have many questions and many things that we want to understand and get clarity on, and this is your opportunity today. It's not many in the room or in the country who have such an opportunity, so grab it with both hands. We're going to have a discussion, a young question and answer, and please feel free to ask Ubaba questions that he might be able to answer and to give you clarity on. The microphone will be going around. Just please put your hand up, let the microphone locate you, and let us start our question and answer. Okay. I think what I'll do, I'll organize your microphone so you don't have to stand long. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Oh, you'll come in. Okay, Papa. Do we have any questions in the audience so far? I have the first question that I brought along was, a man coming home after 3 decades of being forced out of your motherland, what is the psychology of such a man when he returns to this land? How do you view this country? How do you see the future? And how do you experience the country on arrival?
Yeah, the 30 years or so outside of South Africa were not insulated from South Africa. So we were pretty much part of the developments. 1994 would not have happened without the ANC. And the ANC in exile was the ANC that lived. It really would not have. That's why CODESA involved discussions between the government then and the ANC. And this, one says these things because they're truthful, but this is not to undermine the role of any other players. And goodness knows that the UDF, all the organizations that kept the flame burning are what made it possible for 1994 to come. So what was my experience? What was my impression? First of all, I come from a family. I came into a family that was, there were grandchildren then who were born in my absence. And I came back like a prodigal son who had returned. And Professor Stan Sangweni took me to people in Newcastle. I traveled to Edendale, where I was born, met my father. South Africa was changing. Chris, that preeminent revolutionary of ours, and he's not an angel, he's not. But gosh, if that man had the opportunity to be back in South Africa, he wouldn't spend one day outside of South Africa. And hence he earned the kind of respect that at one time placed him just behind Mandela in terms of popularity among young people and so on. So you just have to recognize that and accept that. Somebody has referred to the interview with Ndlozi. I told them that I would not have wanted to participate and talk about the memorandum, which had really serious flaws because most of the authors are no longer there anymore. I'm not answering your question. My answer is, it was really good to see that the fruits of many centuries of struggle and many decades for the ANC were ripening, and there was no stopping the march forward. When they killed Chris, Mandela virtually took charge of this country and dictated what must be done. And so Chris's death actually precipitated the defining of the election day, because it had to happen within a year of his assassination. And that was what the mood in the country. Unfortunately, in KZN, things were very, very difficult. Buthelezi almost didn't participate in the elections. And they had to get a Kenyan professor and other people to talk him into being part of the change. I can't remember what his issue was, but it was good that he also came around. But there are lots of people who died in KZN because of the differences between the supporters of the IFP and the ANC. So that was the mood. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it was an unstoppable march to freedom, and I felt that it's good to have been a part of this, however small, and this is not just crazy modesty. The truth is that many people contributed to the achievement of 1994. the road to 1994 was really strewn with blood, with thorns and so on. Count all the people who died before 1994 in the struggle, their contribution, their sacrifices is what made April 27, 1994 happen. This is why it is so egregious to see us go the way we're going. You just don't know how they would handle things that sometimes happen because we lack the resolve, the courage to fix things, because some little person who has got a senior position will be offended. There's no one in South Africa who's got a constituency that would be withheld from the ANC simply because they were fired for wrongdoing. People must understand that. Yeah, that's my long answer.
Thank you, Baba. There are hands in the audience. I don't know if there are any other elders that want to give a fa on what it was like to return to the country, whilst we move the microphone.
No, it's not going to be about that.
Okay, 100%.
Thank you, Chair. And my congratulations to Comrade Walter. Just two things. The title is Hope and Vigilance. Hope is self-explanatory in that it's hope that defines who we are, and it's hope that keeps on inspiring us to do more. I would like you to say more on vigilance, which I suppose is part of the prescription. What is it that you are cautioning us against when you make reference to vigilance? Thanks.
Actually, we could get anybody. I could cast anybody in the audience, such as the strength of the participation here, to answer this question. But let me say it and remind me also to talk about xenophobia, Afrophobia. It was very brave of people pre-1994, 1960s and so on, especially when MK was formed, to decide to be part of the ANC. It was very risky, and the enemy did not hesitate either to throw you in jail, punish your family, deny you job opportunities. So the caliber and the commitment of the people who joined at the time was almost unquestionably high. They came into the ANC because it was a vehicle. There were others, but it was the vehicle they chose to take us to freedom. So fast forward to 1994, and it's clear that ANC is going to win. And by the way, some of us in the 1993 were saying to Tata Mandela, you know, you are so popular, everybody on earth loves you, including people who've got lots of money. It wouldn't be a bad idea if you went on a round of fundraising for the ANC, which was going to be government, so that you get a fund manager to get the billions that you would have got. There's no exaggeration here. You would have been able to get those monies that are dedicated to the ANC, so that when we're in government as ministers or other public officials, we're not tempted to do ANC work using those public funds. So unfortunately, that didn't really happen. So you got some of these crooked people coming to say, if you do this, we will give contributions to the ANC, and they need a tender, and they get given a tender of 20 million, and they give the ANC 500,000, if that, and so on. But we became vulnerable because we didn't need the funds to run the organization away from state responsibilities. Just one of the things. We can't go back. That's past now. But also, many people came in because there was an advantage to being a member of the ANC. I think our vetting system was very poor. We should have established new criteria to say you may come in if you meet this, that, and the other thing. But this is not to say ANC was messed up by the people who came in, because we who had been there all the time also got involved big time in things of corruption and what have you. So, hope. What's the hope? Hope is that this organization or its values will not be dropped. How we redesign the vehicle to do that, how we energize it, is really the big question. I've just come to understand how, even though people are equals, members of the NEC, they are all equals, all elected by people, by constituencies, but the first among these equals is the person who is given the leadership. And believe you me, they have a big role to play, positively or negatively. We have history now which has shown people using leadership. Nelson Mandela would say, okay, fine, I don't think he would have had too much time for step aside. If he just thought it was nonsense, he would say, no, let us not allow that one in. And he would not be allowed in, and no one would be saying, no, you're encroaching on step aside. It's a guide, these things that we use, and we do need to say, you'll step aside because you have been implicated. But if you've not been taken to court, if I had the funds, if I had the power, as usually happens with African families, to abuse people, abuse my wife, she wouldn't run to court and report me. But if it was known that I'm doing this thing, there must be a possibility of saying, by elders or a group of people, say, just stand aside a little bit. We're not going to say, continue because you have not been charged in court. So a guide must not be taken as a strict article of faith. But my hope, yes, there is reference to the time when I came out, and the interesting thing about my resignation, you'll read about in the book why, and you know why, many people know, was the reaction when I went back. The public, which was really fed up with the ANC at the time, which saw me as a hero for living this thing, were so disappointed. I got really terrible names, flip-flopper and all of that and so on. The people in the ANC who have the interest of this organization at heart said, well, we acknowledge this role you played, but you were on a platform, particularly the platform of veterans. Now you've pulled out your plank from this platform, and how do you expect us? How do you expect it to be replaced? You've got to come back and do what we committed to do, because you have left us in struggle. So there was rejoicing by ANC people that I went back. There was serious condemnation. Yes, I mean, derision. from others. So it's very interesting. It says something about the state to which our organization had lost its way. So your question is a very difficult one, Comrade Advocate Piccoli. You've gone through these things, by the way, now from different people, different from the usual suspects. Stood his ground and he lost his job. Oh my God, yeah, I'm not going to start new things here. I really now think it's very difficult. When we came down to less than 50%, it was 40%. And when we continue to grab headlines for wrong reasons, if it's not us being accused of corruption, it's people who are associated with us, or people who become corrupt because they can leverage their association with the ANC. So our image continues very bad now, Comrade Piccoli. And there will be elections at the end of this year, and there will be. We've lost most metros in this country. And the seat of parliament is run by the DA, and a combination of other people run the rest of the other metros. In Johannesburg, a woman called Helen Zille is rowing on boats in potholes. And really exposing some really painful things about the manner in which that show us for the way we've continued not to handle things properly. I don't know, it would be sad if Johannesburg were to be handed back to the people who used the sweat of the black people and of migrants, I'm going to touch on that, to build the city, and in the process destabilized our communities, because migrant labor meant you leave your area of residence to work in the mines for a pittance. And the whole system, of course, was geared to support mining. And so when the hut tax or the cow tax was introduced, it wasn't as if the administration of the time needed money. They needed people to earn money so that they could pay these taxes. And so the most very comprehensive destabilization of society in Southern Africa took place at that point. Johannesburg was built by miners digging gold to build the city and so on. It should not be handed back to people who should not. I'm really worried, like many others. I see some young people, others are not in the ANC, who have a greater potential to stop what this metro from going to wrong hands. Since we are being monitored on YouTube and all of that, I don't want to use this as a campaigning platform, but I can't help but say that. The issue of migrants, guys, let's face it, the ANC, African National Congress, its founding conference was attended by people from all the regions around here, from Swaziland, from Botswana, as we call these places now, from Mozambique. They attended the founding conference of the African National Congress. And when they started their own struggles, some of these organizations called themselves the African National Congress of Zimbabwe. That was what ZAPU was before it got this thing. The African National Congress of Northern Rhodesia, and so on. So there is something, there is a responsibility that the ANC has towards continental unity and building and so on. You know, I listen to anthems when there are international events, and Tanzania stands up and sings their anthem, Mkai. They sing Nkosi Sikelel' Africa in their own, not just language, but with the appropriate kind of thing. Zambia does the same. Nkosi Sikelel' Africa, they do that. We still have some of it. We have also included anthems of people who prayed to their gods to make sure that they succeed in oppressing us, and we thought we should include them. The Nkosi Sikelel' Africa, our anthem, is so non-invasive that I would find it difficult to understand why anybody would not want to associate with it. It doesn't say against this person and so on. Say, bless Africa, give it a chance. That you needed to enhance it with other things is, to me, one of the failures of the agreements. Anybody who is a true South African would find it quite comfortable to sing Nkosi Sikelel'. Mind you, there are people who are not Christian. They accept this, but the message is that of building a country. So, there is no country which allows or should allow people to just come from anywhere and live in the country. So, let me make it absolutely clear. Illegal migrants, this is a scourge. We should not have that. We shouldn't, and we should make sure that their presence is reduced and nullified, either by converting them into proper citizens, or residents here and so on. But the argument is that when this roof leaks, you don't preoccupy yourself with collecting the water that's come through. The main thing is to fix that roof. And the roof that is leaking is the corruption that you find at Home Affairs, at the Department of Traffic, where a person traveling from Joburg to Beitbridge with goods they are buying for their people in Zimbabwe, for which no required taxes are paid or whatever. They carry about 800 rand in their pocket, so that at the first road stop by the police, they give them 100 rand, and they proceed until they get to Beitbridge. And the ones that we used to deport, I was at Home Affairs at one time, we sent them to a place. My memory, what's this called? What's the place where you keep? Lindela. Yeah, it was Christmas time. A lot of them submit themselves for arrest so that we could transport them to Zimbabwe and places like that. And give them good food at Lindela, take them to the border at no cost, and they cross, and they come back, and so on. It is the system that would stop this thing. But beyond that, and I think Thabo was trying to say this the other day, I didn't catch it early enough. We have to create, at the very least, a functioning SADC. Hope. If SADC functioned, I'm telling you, you would want all these people who are here and you want to go away to come into South Africa, because the strategic location of our country, the strategic advantage of the developments, communications, infrastructure, road, and so on, is such that this would always be a magnet to attract people into this place. We would have to make sure that we use, we recognize the potential of other countries. Zambia is the most well-watered country in the subcontinent. create it as a center for agricultural development, technology. All things must happen there. You can find something meaningful for each of these countries that are in SADC. But the starting point, of course, requires money. Thabo was making an example of how Portugal and Germany are all in the EU. But I think some kind of funding arrangement had to be made to allow Portugal to play the role of a member of the EU. So why aren't we able to do that? This is my hope, that we will make use of the Inga Dam, the third largest on earth. It is in Congo. If we tapped that as a unit, as a region, it would deliver hydroelectric power, the cleanest power that you can hope for, to the whole subcontinent, to us here, and all these solar panels and so on. They are an attempt at moving away from coal and all of that, but they come nowhere near the power that would be provided by a hydroelectric system. So, Comrade Vusi, my hope is that we will yet step forward and realize that we can build a SADC. You know, I look like many others who follow soccer. At Arsenal, by the way, won the championship. Look at the players there. There would be 10 out of 11 coming from outside the UK. The club is British. You look at the crowd, how much they support the club because it's based there. So this free movement of people following trade, following all of it, is what we should strive for. I mean, if we say we can't do it, we are accepting our inferiority. My hope is that we're not inferior, and it's going to happen here. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we've had. Can we just?
Thank you. Thank you, MC. Let me thank the author of this book and appreciate the collection of all his articles and views that are historical, that take into account the different stages or eras of our struggle. And I'm sure some of these issues will be debated for a very long time. I just want to hone in on the issue of the. Hello.
No, we can hear you.
Oh,
We hear you clearly, sir.
I want to. I don't know if just to talk on very briefly on the issue of the migrants or foreign nationals. It's a very, very, very complex issue. And I am not so sure if it has any specific one single answer to remedy the whole problem. I often hear a lot about foreigners coming to take our jobs. That's one. Two, the response to that is that we were in exile and everybody looked after us very well. We were never chased away. But I think it's important to understand context and content. The generalization does not help the debate. I lived in Lesotho for 3.5 years and I enjoyed it. I lived in Lusaka for 3 years or so. I enjoyed it. But the conditions and the situation at the time in those countries was also different from the conditions we live in this country. Once you isolate the social and the political from the economic situation of any country for that matter,
Yes.
you're going to run into very serious problems. Comrade Thabo has been saying you cannot solve the problem of migrants to South Africa without addressing the economic situations in the Southern African region. And if you look at it, many of these people are not political migrants. They are economic migrants.
Yes.
If you look at America today and Mexico and the Southern American countries, the problem is economics. So I think that this debate has got to be opened up and not lock ourselves in the emotional Dudula type language at this level. Not that the Dudula people are wrong in everything. There are a lot of relevant issues they raised that I think are important to apply, to consider. But we must also dig down or dig deep into what are the problems, what are the issues. And unfortunately, I have not read the book. I have not read the chapters. I know Comrade Mavuso's views on some of these issues, and I listened very much to Comrade Thabo and some of the people who are talking about this. I agree to some, I don't agree with all of them, including generalization about solving the economic problems of the Southern African region. That's a very general statement. South Africa can't solve the problems of Southern Africa.
Correct.
The problem starts at AU down, and of course, the multinational corporations and the role of the international multilateral corporations. So I think this matter must be debated and not be rhetorical and sloganize about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I know. Economics has really left us in a very harsh space where we are unable to see our brother as our brother. My stomach first. I think there was a hand. Okay, I think we'll give Mama Qala, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, before you commence, Ma'am, please do forgive me. Ubaba, we've asked him to sit down and relax, and he will hold the microphone. I hope you are comfortable with that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and congratulations to Comrade Mavuso. And also take this opportunity to congratulate ourselves on Africa Day. It is a pity that Africa Day is being celebrated in South Africa in the context of what has become known as the xenophobia, which is probably a questionable name. I just have one or two questions. How did we get here, Comrade Mavuso? How did we get to where we are? In your analysis, you reflected mainly on the conference, the 2007 conference. That's what you referred to. But was that the main trigger of things that are happening today, both in the ANC and in the country? There are those who argue that when we negotiated, we were caught in the euphoria of negotiations and coming back, and also the unbanning of organizations and return of exiles and so on. And in the meantime, those that we were fighting against were organizing for their return. And they named this the counter-revolution was building, that they never gave off. We celebrated the political power, but we never got to dismantle the state and its machinery, whether it was your defense, your police, your intelligence and everything. So they call this counter-revolution. But in the meantime, while there was this counter-revolution that was building in within our own democratic dispensation, there was also counter-revolution that was building in the main political party or liberation movement, the ANC. So that vigilance that you were talking about seems to have not been there when we're looking at all these things and looking ahead, being caught in that euphoria. So I would like to get your views as to how did we get to where we are today? Because that may be very important for my next question of what do we then do now that we're here? You say that there's stubborn continuation of the problem, and I agree with you. And you say that there was an attempt to have a special conference, which would be different from your general conference or from your conference of the ANC. Is there any call now from the veterans or from anybody to have that special conference being reinstated? Because maybe, as other people argue, the ordinary conference that will take place will not help us in looking at these problems. So it's what's to be done, how did you get here, and what's to be done? And just to be provocative to you, because you're also provocative as a person. At some point, you asked the president to step aside. What is your view now about what is happening? Thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask Baba, if you permit, I will remind you of each one of them. Can we take 3 or 4, and then we get back to all of them, so we were able to capture everyone?
Thank you. Congratulations, Nonkosi. I'll just ask this question as a young person who grew up in the 90s, and then bringing into the context of what we have seen over the last month in protest. And I will generalize protest of, we know what the protests are going about now.
Yes.
But generally in the country, there's protest, either service delivery. We're a country of protest, and it's not different what I've seen growing up in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I call it the politics of the protest. Until people protest, then government will listen. And my views on that are very diplomatic, and Nonkosi knows. But my question is around political leadership. In all of these protests, I'm yet to see leaders, whether in the ANC or in government, going out and engaging with the people. And in my view, as I grew up, I saw a lot of political leaders who will go in protest, whether they agree on the content or not, but they will be there engaging with the people, listening to their views. But recently we see, or I see, leaders who are very divorced from the people. Whatever the content of the protest, all we see, it's leaders who call on press conferences, Twitter statements, national television addressing the nations, but we rarely see leaders who are in the forefront. Over the last month, I've been observing very carefully, and I call it the unled revolution of the migrants. The people we see on our screens, on Twitter, are people who are not political leaders, are just, we call them civil leaders. Where are the leaders, whether on the ANC or government, who will go, put out their fears, go and face the people, listen to them? Because I think the frustration that, or the tensions that builds up is just the lack of visible leaders, and the revolution becomes in whatever wind it takes, because there's no clear. Our leaders in politics, whether ministers, are so very reluctant to go out there and speak, but there will be hundreds of press statements, Twitter statements, and you wonder, what's the fear of going out there and engaging? Because that's what the politics we knew growing up, that our leaders will come out and address us. Thank you so much.
100%. Thank you. Mama had a hand up. I think initially, okay, it'll come back. He said, Khalis, it'll come back.
Okay.
Good morning. Oh, afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Congratulations, Comrade Msima. My question is based on the Lutuli detachment. I wanted to ask is there any assistance from the ANC for the fallen heroes out of the country? Because I'm one of the family member who's still waiting for our uncle who fell somewhere in Zimbabwe, but we don't get any help. So my question is, when, or if this still GNU are going to be the part of the assisting from bringing back our the remains of our loved ones. Full stop. My number 2 question is also about land, because when Nelson Mandela came out of the, when he stated clear his, or the ANC, what can I say? The ANC policies, they stated about the land issues. So I saw the land. I'm gonna be specific on that. Valmansdal is the place where all, they don't care, but people had their title deeds and stuff like that. So on you, Comrade Msima, what can it be done to fix all the messes that is happening on the name of the ANC? Thank you.
Can I have the last question here, and then we give it back to Baba to be able to round up.
Thank you so much. I'm not asking a question so much as making a comment.
100%.
First of all, Puti, I want to thank you really for your, just for being like a tree on which we could lean in times of trouble. I think many can share what I have in this room, that when you have a problem, when you have an issue, we could call you and you are there. And I thank you very much for this, especially on the issue of the treatment of African migrants and the Afrophobia in this country, that I've been able to call you and actually feel in moments of great despair that there is hope to look for solutions. And I thank you for this. And I thank the organizers of this event for making this on Africa Day, because it has been one of the most depressing moments, I think, for us on this continent, because we are in a moment of global white supremacy of the most pernicious kind that hasn't existed since the Nazi era. And we have a tsunami coming our way of, in fact, artificial intelligence is already here, with a very anti-human white supremacist ethos. And as an African people, black people are threatened everywhere. There is almost, one could say, it's almost going towards the extermination of black people. And yet this continent is wanted for its rare earth minerals. So we're facing this danger, and yet as Africans, we have a situation where we are fighting against each other. And there is no African unity. I think there's less Pan-African unity in this moment than ever that we can remember. So I think we'll have these conversations going forward. There is a need more than ever. There's no way we can win any of this battle against white supremacy without a Pan-African approach, without a regional approach. Africa has the youngest mean population, I think, of all the continents, and yet we are not leveraging this advantage. And so I think we need to look at ways of building a new Pan-Africanism based on having understanding of our history, but going forward, we are in a new context. But what are we doing to enable young Africans to get the exposure that we had. We had opportunities during the liberation struggle. We were sent to study here, there, everywhere. We moved around the continent. But the vast majority of young people today don't have that opportunity. So I'm really feeling that your book is important because it gives that kind of commentary which young people need. So we have to get them to read it. But I want to say, especially around AI, there's been this debacle of AI policy in the country. And clearly, a department that has, and politicians who have no depth to understand how. I'm glad there's been a high-level panel, but the society needs to engage on this issue. And there needs to be a Pan-African approach on this. We can't do it on our own. And I really want to appeal to South Africans not to have the attitude that we are being asked to solve the problems of Africa, but really to say we are in this together and we need each other. And on the AI specifically, we need each other in terms of developing this policy. African workers have been used throughout this continent to be data feeders into this, and they have noted the absolute biases and the absolute racist underpinnings of these technologies. And those workers are in Kenya, they are in Cameroon, they are in Uganda. We need that kind of experience to help inform our policy-making process. So I'm really appealing for a new Pan-Africanism involving young people and giving young people the opportunity to engage with the rest of the continent and some investment to be made into this. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Oh. Baba, I'm just going to quickly remind you, the first question was, how did we get here? And what do we do now that we're here to resolve all this?
Thank you very much. Can I be heard?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a pity because I stand alone here as if I was the expert. And I'm sitting with people who have got really serious, well-considered and well-cultivated views. How did we get here? And an aspect of that is, first of all, let's accept it that 1994 came about because all parties agreed that at least the objective of a universal franchise is accepted by all. Apartheid was about giving us Bantustans, limiting things and so on, but because of the work that was done against apartheid globally, they came to accept that a South Africa that belonged to all should be allowed to come in. There was still, we negotiate because none of us marched on Pretoria victorious with tanks because we've defeated the enemy. This thing could have gone on for a very long time. It could have. And I praise the wisdom of people who thought, wow, if there is a possibility now of getting to a solution, let's talk about it. You don't fight for the sake of it. It's very expensive. It kills people. It generates refugees. We would all be in Lesotho and other places if we just stubbornly said until our will be done. So you have to negotiate that. So with the negotiations, I really believe that none of the things that were negotiated compromised us. I wasn't part of the negotiators, to the extent that you could not set the situation right. Absolutely not. Where did we go wrong? For instance, the BEE program was meant to assist ordinary people, smaller people, to contribute towards uplifting the condition of the masses. We have a crisis because poverty has not actually come down. I'm sad to say that, since 1994. Overall, slight increase. That's what people compile these things to. But we really completely abused the opportunity of getting black people onto the economic this thing. You know, what do you call this? By law, white people were on this treadmill since they came to this country. I'm talking now about people in business. If you were to get black people onto that, affirmative action was necessary. Absolutely. You couldn't just climb on this treadmill, so assist them. The design, but much less the design than the practice of our BE program, failed. The successes come with some of the stronger people, who are multimillionaires. I don't think there's any wrong. I'm happy for them, you know, and so on. But the people who would generate jobs, even in areas where others don't go, who would create employment, who would help people plant and grow things, that program really failed when BE collapsed. There was corruption. We all know this, you know, and it's easy also to condemn. But the truth is, if the BE program had been run properly, you have people who are entrepreneurs, and in all societies, they are assisted in some manner, either by those who are already powerful in the family, but also a system of giving grants, of giving support in a manner that you can claw back and so on. It's difficult for small entrepreneurs to get into business because our state institutions, which are supposed to provide finance, the IDCs, the DBSAs, and all of them, they are as conservative as commercial banks, if not more so. So people are asked to put up, it's called the skin in the game. You show your skin in the game by putting some, what skin do you have? You have no money. I can talk of a person who was granted by the growth fund, of a person who got I think 130 million rand. It's another subject altogether. But to show his interest in the game, the skin in the teeth, they gave him 80 million. They said, we will give you 80 million on condition that you can find the rest. So it's a formula that doesn't work. It's typical. That's why I say it's not exceptional. So the entry point is difficult. So our people have remained poor, partly because our programs that are supposed to be implemented by government have not been effective, but also really where small entrepreneurs could have helped a lot to create employment. The program has either been poorly designed, I'm not an expert, or just not carried out properly. I think that's a big chunk of why we are where we are, in my opinion. A big chunk of it, but what was the second bit?
The second one was what do we do now that we're here? What do we do now that we are here?
Well, I think I still think that if there is a lot of money that's available to government. It is really not being used proficiently. If we had people in place who would know how, and institutions, how to program that money, there is enough money to assist people. And there is enough, we need creativity. Gosh, you know, it's good that our people receive social grants, you know, but I think there are now 29 million or 31 million of them or so on. We have been totally uncreative about this. If you gave the opportunity for people, if you gave support, which people need by the time they are so humiliated that they come to us for this thing, and you had a plan to give them 2 years, 3 years, whatever period, to be in that program, following which you have created jobs in the public sector, our cities, towns, and everything is filthy. You can create jobs of keeping our system clean. There are many ways if we could have been creative. Person who's gone into the social grant program at 15 years of age, 18, and they've been in it for 10 years, 20 years. It's so difficult to incentivize them to go and look for a job and so on now. And so there are instruments available to us, and there are clever people here who know what needs to. We're not doing it properly. There is no commitment to do it, because the leadership ultimately that ought to supervise these things is just not on top of the situation. You know, you talk about AI, I think let's defer that. We are falling behind in our basic education system in this country. And if we're not careful, this land will be led by people who know how to handle AI, science, technology, engineering, and so on. And we have a program where provinces are competing. You know, we got 85%, so KZN was the highest, the Free State. In what? So very little of the subjects that are necessary to run countries in future, now and in the future, are being taught our people. Correct. Because they are more difficult, I don't know. And so we are deceiving ourselves by glorifying these past grades that we got 83% this year. 83% of what? Of passes at 30%. In mathematics, I won't ask anybody to build a bridge for me if that kind of qualification. The tools are there. We are mixing them up with populism and things like that and so on. We can only, I mean, we can sit and talk for a few days on these things and get somebody to do these things. Yeah, that's how bad the situation is.
Thank you, Bob. The next one is the engagement of politicians with the people. We no longer see these politicians on the ground with the people.
Oh, well, that's really part. The ANC, which I belong to, yes. Reborn, operates on a system of branches. Nothing could be more grassroots than having branches that are based on people.
Yes.
It's dysfunctional. A survey was carried out not long ago which showed that, I think during the previous election, 46% of the branches were functional. The others, we couple people together because there's going to be a conference, and we get somebody, and then we get people who will go to conference, represent 100 of us. There are 2 of them. They're as corruptible as anything you can think of. And Sipo says to them, if you support me, I'll give you an opportunity here and so on. And they vote for him. 90% of the votes for ANC leadership come from the branches, but the branches are dysfunctional. So, and it could be remedied by making sure that all of us who belong to a branch and we are bona fide members, we've paid, we attend meetings, can vote and not be abused by 2 people who represent 100. They would have to, AI, information technology that you're talking about, if you decide that everybody is going to vote, I am telling you, the system would be a lot more secure than what happens at conference there, because face recognition would make sure that it's me who has voted there, and we would at that point get the bulk of the people voting for a leadership that they chose rather than the one who was misrepresented by people who have been given money. Sipo wouldn't give people money, I'm just abusing his name.
100%. And then there's a question that ANC, does it have assistance for the fallen heroes or the families of those heroes that.
I'm really sorry because
Passed
these answers I'm giving are really so packaged to save time and all of that.
Yes.
I do wish there was a forum where we would all contribute, and I was happy when when I was checkmate, let's not be sentimental about these things. Let's also look at reality, particularly, by the way, on issues of migrants here and so on. The objective, it's right, the strategy is right. Africa as a continent is behind others. Black people as a race are below others. When you talk famine, you think about Africa before anybody says famine where. If you talk poverty and all of these things, it's Africa. So we can't be unaware of that fact. So we've got to improve this African position in society, in human society. You can't avoid that. If you start today, maybe the results come out in 10 years, but until you start, we will continue like this. So it is a formula, we've got to involve younger people, absolutely. Unfortunately, a lot of them would not even cope because this AI you're talking about, they're victims of social media where clever people just give a useless sentence and then everybody is attracted to that kind of debate. So the question about, last year, didn't see, 2 years ago, was it 2 years ago, when the remains of the people who died in exile were returned. Again, this business of not consulting people or those who were there, they're not there because they were smart. They were there because we were born at the time to be there. Yes. They bring people back, and there are little stories around what somebody did and when they died in exile. And they don't consult anybody to assist them, to give a little story about the remains of the people who are coming back. So there will be quite a bit written about Dumanokwe because everybody knew it was established, taught Machikiza and all of that. But there is a person called Kuluva. I can't remember what his name was. Kuluva. Everyone who crossed the Zambezi on the 2nd of August, 1967, was rowed across by Kuluva and Boston, a guy we call Boston. Back and forth, skilled swimmers and all of that. The little narrative around Kuluva's remains is that he left South Africa in 1960-something and died at some, and that's all. So, but how do we get the rest? There is a unit in the Department of Justice, which is called the Missing Persons Unit. I don't know the exact title, but they trace missing persons. They do consult us, but there are limitations. Those who died in battle and were taken by the enemy, whose bodies were taken by the enemy did not treat them with any dignities. Sometimes they would dig big graves and throw everybody in. But they would have taken, in the culture of people from the West, some samples and so on. So to retrieve some of those bodies, I'm being as crude as the situation is, you have to do, first of all, access. In Zimbabwe, it's Karoi prison, and the graveyard was there. They are trying very hard, I have to say, to go and retrieve these bodies. In many instances, you can still recover the bodies through DNA sampling, but it's a hard task. But there are many more of our comrades whose whereabouts we don't know. and it's going to be very difficult. I think there is really a commitment to get people back. I don't know whether the resources and other things are in place to achieve this. And you talk about GNU, by the way, it's going to be even more difficult as we go forward. There are people who may feel not too terribly concerned about bringing people back into South Africa. After all, they were terrorists, as far as some of the members of the GNU are concerned. So the more we lose the confidence of the people, the more difficult it will be to carry out some of these things. But do not despair. There are some very efficient people in the department, in the missing persons unit. They really do their best to do this. I am not intending to discourage you, because in the end, I think, I don't know, a high percentage of remains can be recovered. But there has to be a continuing will to do that. And that will only happen if there is a government that still feels that those people were worth the assault, and so on. And by the way, this GNU, you can't help it. We don't have power, you have to have a coalition. You have no choice. We are not in charge of this country now. We are the biggest party, and that footprint ought to be used purposefully, instead of us just posting if there's a statement to say, no, they're here by... You can't do without the DA as far as I'm concerned. You have to have them. Otherwise, you not have a stable government in this country. You can't. And then who are going to be in the coalition with yourselves? Some people who don't even believe that this constitution works. Yay, let's be serious about this. I've attempted.
Can I ask Dr. LT Matigiza to come forward whilst Baba, just very briefly, rounds up the last question. The last question, Baba, as Udawatela comes up.
Sorry, I was given a mic, but
never an opportunity.
To say,
okay, let me ask.
I just wanted to make a little comment.
Okay.
Yeah, because a lot have been said. And
please hold the mic closer to you. We would love to hear you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, King.
Yeah. Now, it's this issue on migration.
Yes.
I mean, it is a very difficult one. But I think it's part of the strategy by our enemy to worsen the fragmentation process that's going on. Fragmenting the majority vote of the blacks.
Can I ask you to hold the mic slightly closer?
It's part of that process. It's a very difficult one.
Yes.
Now, if you look at, and we are victims really of the Berlin Conference of 1884. You see, if you look at South Africa, there are more Botswanas in South Africa than in Botswana. There are more Basutus in South Africa than in Lesotho. There are more Swazis in South Africa than, these are numbers. You can go on and on. It's the Berlin Conference that also cut across, clan associations, because you have clans. So it looks like we need to go back and see how to address that issue. There are, fortunately, you can take examples of the EU to see how nationalities have come together. And I think South Africa, we've got to think about that. Because all the problems we have, just take, for instance, illegal mining. Illegal mining involves Basotho who have worked in mines, contributed a lot, know those mines, and they come back here, they are foreigners. Now, also look at our fellow whites that we have. They rather employ a person who comes from Zimbabwe than a South African.
Yes.
Because they can pay that person less, and they are quite sure that even with time, he's not going to unionize and affect their. So we become victims even of the way in which they are making their profits, let alone the fact that our economy itself is not able to absorb the number of people.
Yes.
So we have a very serious problem, which I think we should sit down and say, how do we go back and correct those things that make it possible for us to be fighting over resources ourselves, and yet somebody is extracting those resources for their own benefit. The question of migration is very key, because really it is creating a problem.
Yes.
But it's not a problem of our own making. It's structural, and therefore we should be able to address that. Otherwise, we will not come up with a solution here.
Thank you so much. When you were speaking, sir, you were reminding me of a book by Willie Lynch, where the things that we are seeing in the current state are things that were pre-planned and systematic. And we are forgetting that it's the system that we need to change, not the people. It's the system. Can I rest Ubaba Ncane and give you the question? Is there a plan for land, as Usisi was asking? You would like it.
No, they asked about the land. Maybe
Okay.
somebody feels more,
So, okay.
more comfortable answering that.
So Ubaba was saying if
No, yes,
Covered.
I would invite whoever feels comfortable responding to the question of land. My
Very
little
briefly.
comments here are these. There's been land that's been returned through restitution. Congratulations, that's back. There is land that would be needed for public works. The Constitution allows us to claim back that land. So if we haven't done that, don't blame it on the Constitution. It totally doable. But the preparatory steps, for instance, of making sure that the people who do have access, that we afford access to the land, unless you give them the tools to run that land, they end up sending the land back to the people, and we've seen that in Limpopo and other places and so on. So it looks like a half-hearted thing, an unthought-through thing, because how many people are studying agriculture in universities, for instance? I just really wonder, have we encouraged people to equip themselves to be able to do that? The totality of the land problem is much wider than we see at the surface. And you're not going to seize anybody's land. It has not been done anywhere on earth. You've got to have a formula. I just want to say, one reason I would want land to be given to government or to people who are willing to buy things is that we've got people who come from rural areas, wake up at 3:30, travel, use intermodal transport before they get to their workplace at 8:30, and so on. You would have a right to demand that, first of all, legislation is that everybody who works in manual labor has to be 30 minutes, not more than 30 minutes from working place, something like that. And that would give you access to taking land that you require that's adjacent to the places where people are working. We have to think about these things, and not, the Constitution allows us to do all of these things. I agree with Comrade Zola about what he says. These are structural problems, but these are thinking problems. Thank you. But if there is a better answer, please.
I don't think there's hands for that. Thank you so much. I'm going to hand over to Dawatela to be able to give us a vote of thanks. And we'd love to thank Unisa in all departments, everybody in Unisa who made this possible. We thank you for the time, for putting us together. Thank you on such a beautiful day. Africa is for Africans and it was built by Africans, and we shall rejoice in Africa forevermore. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you very much, MC. Babu Simang, Hlubi, nam dilingela Daventle Zumbi, Nonkos, Sipozimiamas Choir. I'm also that member of that clan as well. We thank you very much, Dr. Simang, for partnering with Unisa Press in this journey of the book. Certainly, with these elaborate responses you are providing, we certainly think you can conceptualize another book. I mean, already there's a chapter already drafted somewhere in your responses. For today, we thank you very much for your participation and engagement today, reflecting on the book. And I think I would also want to acknowledge, I think Advocate Mandula is not here, who dissected the book for us very generously, reflected again in the current context as well. I thank my boss as well for, again, stimulating us on thinking on what is scholarship. And I'm sure this book constitutes scholarship, we can say that, because it's not about what we've been fed before. We can define what scholarship is. It doesn't have to portray any Western-induced way of defining it. So this book is definitely scholarship. Babum Kabadeli, let me also thank you very much for emceeing us, putting us in a meditative space to reflect as well on what happened in our country over the years. And my colleague as well, let me acknowledge Ms. Heta Petersen, the commissioning editor, who has been very generous as well with his time in nursing this project up to completion. And I see in our audience a lot of struggle stalwarts, and I'm actually inviting them to submit manuscripts. With all this wisdom, it can't be just let go. And we can see from the engagements here that there's quite some content that needs to be shared. Please consider Unisa Press again to also share your personal stories, because we know the history of the ANC. The chronicles the flat chronicles are there to chronicle the dates. This was when the movement started, and then there was Morogoro and all the milestones. But we miss the narratives, the personal narratives of the participants in that struggle. So we would like to invite you. Utatu Port and Ango Shelupa, he has also written a book with us. There's a book he published with us. So they are slowly coming. So your comrades are coming through. So please also come through. You are invited to publish with us. Lastly, I must also thank, there are colleagues outside the room, the Unisa Press colleagues who also were part of the team in actually hand-holding the whole project from start to finish. So lastly, I thank the audience, colleagues, everyone, each and every one of you who has been here, spending your spare time. I note that there's even members of the family as well who have been here, graced us with your presence. We thank you very much for affording your time and giving us space in your diaries to be with us amidst normally hectic diaries on Mondays. We thank as well the audience for the robust engagements and discussions that we've had in this morning, which made for quite a pleasant occasion. Yes, there is thinking about problems that Babum Simang has said. We are continuing, and may your reflections, your own reflections and thoughts also be converted into manuscripts, which we will publish as well. Thank you very much. I am told there are refreshments provided, more soft drinks than hard ones, because it's that time of the day. Otherwise, the hard drinks would actually stimulate further hard thinking about these matters. But unfortunately, it's that time. If it was more in the afternoon, we would have contemplated those sort of drinks as well. Thank you very much for all your participation and presence here. I thank you. Thanks, MC. Oh, I'm told again, the book is available outside. You have a privilege of getting a signed copy today because the author is here. So buy one and buy one for a loved one as well, as a gift. It's very generously priced. All our books are reasonably priced. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ukusbegezelela. Thank you for your time and afternoon. Hello. Sisela. Bo mama. Bo mama. Bo mama. Ngaya nisitshele nathi sazi. No problem, mama. Thank you so much for giving us your time, your ears, your hearts, and your knowledge as well. From myself, Wandile Udladlu Mkabatele, and on behalf of this beautiful book and this man who's given us a piece of his mind and his thoughts and his heart. And Mrs. Puma, let us buy ourselves a copy and our loved ones. And Baba Uti, their famous signature nganiga. And you don't know when you would need it. Please enjoy the rest of the afternoon. I ask the elders, allow us to engage you and to get a piece of wisdom that we might never get again. Please stick around for us to be able to ask a few questions and to ask, because I'm seriously going to bother you about AI. I'm coming. Please stick around long enough for us to engage with you. Thank you for everyone that has made it through, especially you, Unisa, and giving us this beautiful occasion. God bless and hambe kahle ke. Siyabonga.